Mr. President, great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Historic day. I think most people like me want to know what was going on in that room, one-on-one.
Well, the big thing is this is now my 25th hour of being up and negotiating, and we've been negotiating very hard.
This is about the complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization of the entire peninsula.
So without that, we could not have had a deal. I mean, one thing up front, we want to denuke the entire peninsula. We want to denuke that whole situation. That is a hotbed. And you know what's been happening for years, and nobody did anything about it. And you have to. We have no choice. We had to. And the relationship was really good. It built. And I talked about early on in the relationship and the feeling. Well, we had a very good feel right from the beginning. And we were able to get something very important done. And actually some things happened after that was signed, Sean, where we're getting rid of certain missile research areas, certain missile testing sites. They're getting rid of a lot.
You know, in the lead up to this, and this was pretty amazing because obviously I'm a pretty strong critic of our news media in the country, but a lot had happened. He had dismantled a nuclear test site. He crossed over the DMZ. 3 hostages were released. The missiles stopped being fired. He was willing, you wouldn't have come here if he was not willing to talk about denuclearization.
That's right.
So all of that happened before you walked in, and I don't remember that you sent cargo planes of cash or gave anything really before the lead up. Why do you think he's interested in doing this after spending that time with him?
Well, it's sort of interesting because I noticed some of the press, and I'm not even knocking him because honestly they've been treating me very good on this subject. What's to treat badly? But some of the press would say he's meeting with them and therefore he has a major loss. I said, since when? And others wanted to. It never worked out. It probably never could have worked out. But we really have gotten a lot. You haven't seen missiles going up in 7 or 8 months. You haven't seen research. You haven't seen nuclear tests, very importantly. Japan is very happy because they're being encircled. I mean, there was a period of time when they were going right over the middle of Japan. And we got our hostages back. And you're right, we didn't pay for that. But I think, I don't say that in a braggadocious way at all, because he did such a smart thing, because that was such a good thing to do. And I feel so badly about Otto Warmbier. That was the one thing. And Otto did not die in vain. I actually believe, and I've gotten very friendly with Otto's parents. They're incredible people, devastated, as they, as you would think, great parents. He was a great young man. But I think without Otto, this whole thing wouldn't have happened, because it crystallized when he came back in the condition. It crystallized so much to so many people, maybe even to the other side, frankly. But I think that Otto truly did not die in vain.
I've known you for a lot of years, and I think one trait that I could say is brutal honesty. In the room, alone, and then the subsequent talks with your team and their team. How honest, how brutal, what was said? Try and bring people into the room.
So we got along very well. We got along from the beginning. We started off, he and myself and 2 interpreters, and from the beginning we got along. I've made the statement, and I've said it before. I've said it about a lot of different kinds of relationships. You can almost tell right at the beginning.
Did you tell at the beginning? What was that first minute?
No, I felt very good at the beginning, and I talked about we have to denuke. This country has to be denuked, and he understood that. He fully understood it. He didn't fight it. And we're doing some great things, and for his country, and South Korea is going to be involved very much in helping, and Japan is going to be involved, and President Xi of China has been, really terrific on the border. I think less so the last couple of months, unfortunately.
Was that a big part? Because your meetings, when you met with the president of China, was scheduled, if I recall, for like 15 minutes. Didn't some go on for 4 hours?
That's right. Well, we actually met at Mar-a-Lago. He wanted to be at Mar-a-Lago, and we had a 15-minute meeting scheduled. When he comes in, we were going to go to breakout rooms where we had many people waiting for us, and it ended up lasting 4 hours. The 15 minutes, president of China, great guy, it ended up lasting for 4 hours. We just got along, and we have gotten along. I mean, I want him to treat us better in trade. That's my only problem. You know, they've
Is
been
it happening?
killing us.
Didn't they make concessions on intellectual property?
Well, they
trade?
want to do things. It's a tough thing. You know, they're doing so well. They've made so much progress against us for so many years. It's awfully tough for them to bring it back. And we'll see how that all works out. We're gonna do something. Definitely, we're gonna do something. You know, they offered us $80 billion in purchases of agricultural products,
right.
but it's just not enough for what we're talking about. It's $80 billion.
What do you want?
I never thought I'd turn down $80 billion, but we have to do something with intellectual property. We have to do something just generally on trade. Last year we lost $500 billion with China. We can't do that anymore. Brings that up. But they weren't dealing with me. They were dealing with different people. And
What
they
did
never
he say
got very
was the
far. You know,
difference?
nobody's ever come close to
Did he talk
this.
about the difference between past administrations and yours?
Yes, but I can't say that because I don't want to be the one saying it. At some point, I'm sure he'll say it.
Yeah.
But they never got it done. And they were never close either. I mean, it was never to a point where they were like we are.
Is there a history lesson to learn here? I think in one sense we could talk about past administrations. Reagan, evil empire, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. His own advisors wanted to take those words out of that speech. And you compare Bill Clinton gave Kim Jong-un's father $3 billion in energy subsidies.
Tremendous amount of money.
The mullahs in Iran, you have said the worst deal in the history of mankind. That's
Probably the worst deal I've ever seen. Worse than NAFTA, and I think NAFTA is pretty bad. Worse than the WTO, the World Trade Organization, which frankly built China, in addition to the money that we gave them all the time. You know, I mean, these were terrible deals. But I would say that the Iran deal was one of the worst I've ever seen. I will say, speaking of the Iran deal, since we got out of that deal, and we could do it very easily because they never had it approved by Congress. It was just President
This must be
Obama.
approved by Congress.
I want it to be approved by Congress because otherwise it really doesn't mean very much. I would think anybody would want it approved by Congress. But since we took out of that deal, we got out of that deal, I think Iran is a much different place. I don't think they're looking so much to the Mediterranean and Syria and Yemen. They're starting to pull people out of Yemen. They're starting to pull people out of Syria. You know, it's a whole different thing. Now, I did it for nuclear. But one of the side benefits is you take a look, a serious look, and Iran is not the country that it was 3 or 4 months ago when they were much more emboldened.
Well, certainly sanctions played a big part.
Big part.
The strike forces that you sent into the region off the coast.
And I think at a certain point, honestly, I know the Iranian people. I know many people from Iran. These are great people. I really believe at some point they're going to come back and want to negotiate a deal.
All right, when we come back, much more to get to with President Trump, and let not your heart be troubled. And we got some deep state breaking news, a showdown between the DOJ and Republicans that are trying to do their constitutional oversight. This is getting interesting in the lead up to the IG report release on Thursday. We'll have the latest.
Come up? Did humanitarian issues come up in the meeting?
Yes, it did. And one of the things I will tell you that I'm most happy about, and that, as you know, is a big sticking point, is bringing back the remains of thousands of soldiers that were killed.
This came up last
Korea.
minute. This wasn't...
This was sort of last minute, yeah. I said, would it be possible? Because I get letters all the time from families who lost a son, lost a brother, lost a father in Korea. That was a rough fight.
Right.
And they were buried along the roadways. They were buried as, you know, soldiers going back and forth into battle, and they were burying them along roadways. And they're saying, please, please, could you do it? I get so many letters from people who lost a loved one in North Korea, essentially, in North Korea.
Right.
And I would say, I'm going to try. And I brought it up, and I'll tell you what, it was almost immediate. Now, in the past, you couldn't even talk about it. But it was really a nice response.
How quickly did you talk about a trip to the United States? Did you talk about...
I think at the right time, he'll absolutely be coming to the White House, yeah. Look, it's been a very intense relationship. It's been short and very intense. And, of course, before that, it was pretty rhetorical. It was, you know, not a pretty thing. People were very worried. But without that, I don't think we would have been here today. He wants to get something done. I want to get something done. I think we'll get it done. And we started off by really a very strong document. I think people are surprised to see it. They're shocked to see it. And then add some more things that we got after that was signed.
And so can you give us maybe a glimpse into what you keep sort of referring a little bit to things that will be coming?
So I just think that we are now going to start the process of denuclearization of North Korea, and I believe that he's going back and will start it virtually immediately, and he already indicated that. And you look at what he's done. So we got our hostages back, but they've blown up one of their sites, one of their testing sites, their primary testing site. In fact, some people say their only testing site. They're getting rid of a missile, which isn't in the document that was done afterwards. They're getting rid of a missile testing site. They're doing so much now. So it's a process, and it's really moving rapidly.
Last question, because I know you have a lot to do. Obviously, he wants something on his end. Certainly, he wants the world community, wants sanctions lifted. He wants economic opportunity, and his people need it desperately. There are people starving there. So I guess the question is the order. What would he have to do to get the sanctions lifted, to get the economic opportunity opened up for the people?
Well, what he wants is security, and I understand that, and he'll get that. And he wants to see if they can make that incredible location, because it's incredible. It's between China and South Korea. Think of it. I'm in the real estate business. Think of that. You have it's prosperous South Korea.
Trump Tower, maybe
no,
the
but
first
think
thing.
how good a location is that? You have China, and you have South Korea. And he's got right in the middle of both of them, surrounded by water. Okay, that's called like. Can there be anything better than that? And it's also beautiful land. It's incredible land. So I think he understands that. I told him about that today, and I think he really understands it. And
the Chinese
he wants
happy.
To make it great.
They're involved. The South Koreans, the Japanese.
I think so. I think, look, China can't be thrilled about a very strong group of people having nuclear missiles with great capability right next to them. So I really do believe they are. They were very, very helpful. I think maybe a little bit less so in the last 2 or 3 months, because we're talking about trade and other things. And, you know, nothing's going to interfere with my relationship with President Xi, because I have great respect for him. He's really a great man in the true sense. He's a great man.
One of the best stories you tell, and it's an interesting story, historically speaking, is you were having dessert with him.
That's right, at Mar-a-Lago, chocolate cake.
You remember?
And I said,
this was after Assad had used chemical weapons on his own people.
That's right.
And you had launched the first strike.
I said, Mr. President, we just sent 58 missiles into Syria to hit a certain target. And he said, please say it again, with his interpreter. I said, we just sent 58 missiles in. By the way, to show you the technology, every single one of those missiles from 700 miles away in the ocean, ships in the ocean, every one, 58 missiles, 58 hits. It's incredible technology. What we have is so incredible, so lethal. Not that we want to do it, but so lethal. But that was done because Syria, Assad, used chemical gases on children. And we had to do that. Had President Obama gone over the red line, I think you maybe would have had a different story in the Middle East. I really believe that. But he didn't do that. But we did. And so I told him, sitting at Mar-a-Lago at dinner,
eating chocolate cake.
I said, either he's going to leave or we're going to still be friends. But he didn't leave. But he understood. He really understood. He doesn't want to see that. Well, I think he really did, because he knew that a lot of people and a lot of children were killed by gas. And he fully understood.
I know you have a lot to do. Mr. President, thanks for being so generous with your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations.